our King. Come, let us bow at his feet. He has done great things. See what a Savior has done. See how his love overcomes. He has done great things. He has done great things. Oh, hero of heaven, you conquered the grave. You free every captive and break every chain. Oh God, you have done great things. We dance in your freedom, awake and alive. Oh Jesus, our Savior, your name lifted high. Oh God, you have done great things. So you've been faithful. You've been faithful through every storm. You'll be faithful forevermore. You have done great things. Yes, Lord. And I know you will do it again. For your promise is yes and amen. You will do great things. God, you do great things. Oh, hero of heaven, you conquer the grave. You free every captive and break every chain. Oh God, you have done great things. We dance in your freedom, awake and alive. Oh Jesus, our Savior, your name lifted high. Oh God, you have done great things. Sing hallelujah. Hallelujah, God, above it all. Hallelujah, God, unshakable. Hallelujah, you have done great things. Sing that again. Hallelujah, God, above it all. Hallelujah, God, unshakable. Hallelujah, you have done great things. You've done great things. Oh, hero of heaven, you conquered the grave. You free every captive and break every chain. Oh God, you have done great things. We dance in your freedom, awake and alive. Oh Jesus, our Savior, your name lifted high. Oh God, you have done great things. You have done great things. Oh God, you do great things. Let's give God some praise. Thank you, God.
Good morning. Morning. You can have a seat. Well, God does do great things, doesn't he? He brought us together this morning. It's good to gather together as we do on the first Wednesday of every month. I welcome you to our convocation this morning, our November convocation. My name is Marie Wisner. I'm the Associate Dean for Learning, Calling, and Career here at Montreat. As you know, Montreat's mission is to educate students through intellectual inquiry, spiritual formation, and preparation for calling and career, all to impact the world for Jesus Christ. As a student at Montreat, you have many opportunities to learn and grow in career readiness through the Thrive Center for Learning, Calling, and Career, your residence halls, the classrooms, chapel, athletics, and experiences on and off the field, or on and off the campus, and on and off the field. And today, in keeping with our missional commitment to you, we will be having a symposium of conversations with our guest speaker, Andy Chan. Beginning with Convocation this morning, this is a conversation. You'll hear a lot. You'll have an opportunity following to have a conversation with Andy Chan and a question and answer discussion time over lunch in the fellowship hall, the Gaither Fellowship Hall. So some of you reserved a box lunch. We'll have a few extra if you didn't. So all are welcome to come. We hope that you'll attend. As we prepare to consider the questions, what's my why? And how do I find it? Would you stand and join me in our Convocation tradition of saying the Lord's Prayer together? Okay. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. Thank you. Have a seat. Our speaker this morning, Andy Chan, is the Vice President for the Office of Personal and Career Development at Wake Forest University. He oversees the award-winning Office of Personal and Career Development, Alumni Personal and Career Development Center, Mentoring Resource Center, and pre-college programs. He previously led the MBA Career Management Center at Stanford University. Andy is known as an innovator with a career mission to positively transform the college-to-career experience for all students. He compels universities to make career readiness and engagement a mission-critical component of the college experience. Andy and the Wake Forest Office of Personal and Career Development have been featured in the New York Times, Wall Street Journal, the Washington Post, MSNBC, NPR, USA Today, Inside Higher Education, and the Chronicle of Higher Education. Andy coaches and mentors executives, parents, and students of all ages and backgrounds. As a professor of the practice at Wake Forest University and Stanford's Graduate School of Business, he has taught entrepreneurship, leadership, strategic career management, and career and life vision. He is also a strategic advisor to organizations including Handshake, Mackinac Roundtable on Talent, Network for Vocation and Undergraduate Education, Telemachus, Beyond Barriers, Athletic Foundation, Abide, Trellis, and Sports Challenge. Andy earned his MBA and undergraduate degrees at Stanford University. As a college student, Andy majored in political science and was a student athlete. It's truly a privilege to have Andy with us this morning. Would you join me in welcoming him to our campus and Convocation?
Thank you. Thank you very much for inviting me here, Marie and Karen in particular. If you don't know Karen Eilers, you have to make sure you get to know her. I will talk about that a little bit later. But I want to say good morning to all of you. It is just honestly an honor and pleasure to be here. I have never been to Montreat College. And what I can see is that you are blessed. You are blessed to be at a school that has to be in one of the most beautiful places in the entire world. Like, there are not many college campuses that actually look and feel like what you have here. And the people I've gotten to know here, it's clear that they love you all and they love this place. It is some place that is very, very special. So I'm just really excited to be here. One of the things that also I've learned about Montreat College is that sports is a big part of the experience. How many of you actually are involved in some kind of sports organization? Like almost every single one of you in some way. And one of the things that I think is really cool is that I was looking on your website, and some of you have games literally tonight and tomorrow and Friday, and I hear there's a big game this weekend for the women's soccer team. So good luck to everyone. I am just excited that you all are so involved in sports, because I was involved in sports too when I was back in college. So some of you are probably wondering, who is this sort of old, balding Chinese man standing here in front of you right now? Who is this guy? Well, how many of you have watched The Karate Kid? Raise your hand. Anyone watch Karate Kid? All right. Well, hopefully some of you watch. If you haven't, watch it sometimes. But in that movie, there's this sort of older, not that old, but sort of older, bald Asian man who is the main character, Danny, a high school student, who actually tries to teach him some things. They actually call him a sensei. And that's actually really just a teacher or guide. And he uses very unconventional techniques and wisdom to teach Danny how to become a karate champion, but also how to become a more wise, more cunning, and better person without necessarily using power. And so that sensei's name is, who knows? Mr. Miyagi, right. So think of me today as I'm your Mr. Miyagi. And I will give you a few, hopefully, unconventional tips and wisdom that you might say, this is not what I've heard before. Actually, you can find me on social media under the name Chan Fuchsius. I actually came up with that as a way to say, it's a little play on the very wise philosopher Confucius, but I'm Chan, so Andy Chan. So, when I was thinking a little bit about what all college students face, we at Wake Forest, we've studied this a lot, and what questions students hate to hear are these two most dreaded questions. If you haven't figured out your major, it's what's your major? And if you have figured out your major, it's basically what are you going to do with that major and what are you going to do after college? Students hate to hear that. It's sort of like, how can I give you an answer that'll just get you off my back so I can get on with my day? And what I find is that it's really challenging because we think, as college students, that if we only figured out the answer to this question, then everything would be much easier. Some of you have some friends who actually will say, I figured it out, and so you're really envious of them because you think, gosh, they don't have to be bothered by these questions anymore because they have the answer. So I'm going to suggest today that if you can figure out your why, that's the key to knowing what are the things that could lead you to having a fulfilling and satisfying job, as well as a very inspired career and life. It all starts with why. So one of the things that you just heard Marie talk about was my bio. There's a lot of stuff in it. Probably didn't even hear half of what was in there because there's just a lot. But I would summarize it like this. I started as a business consultant. I became a brand marketing manager. I ended up in educational technology startups as executives in different roles where I was a CEO of one of those companies. And then I made a huge transition. I actually got out of the business world and startup world, and I got into the education world. And I did that at the age of 39. And a lot of people would say, that's a big risk. Why would you do that? Well, I ended up going to work in my career center at my old alma mater. Took a huge pay cut to do that. But what I started to be able to do was teach and mentor students, work with alumni, learn about the connection between the university world and the working world and businesses. And then, actually, I was a mentor and coach to a lot of people who ran startups. And then what happened was that I got a call from the business school dean and the president of Wake Forest, and they said, would you come to Wake Forest because we want to do something totally brand new. And most of my friends actually thought, that's crazy. You're going to leave California to go to North Carolina. Like, that doesn't compute in their minds. But I ended up building a lot of things, like a new career center, a new center for entrepreneurship, and much more, just at Wake Forest, 2 hours down the road. So my professional career may sound really great, but the question I think most of you might want to ask yourself, and I'd actually challenge you to ask any adult that you meet that you think they're doing something cool, is, what in the world were you doing and thinking when you were my age? When you were 20, 19, 18, 21, 22, what were you doing? Because you weren't doing what you're doing now, and I'd love to really know about that. So what I call this part of the story, let's see if it works here, here we go, is the origin story. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about my origin story, talk about this concept of what's my why and how do I find it, and then finally a few tips of advice. So here's my story. There we go. It's got a little delay. So when I started in high school, I was a pretty good high school swimmer. I grew up in New York, sort of grade school, high school. I was one of the top swimmers in the state. I actually was trying to go for, like, my goal at the time was to be the fastest swimmer in the 200 IM. And I didn't get it. I got second. And it wasn't actually to be, like, the best student. I was really focused on, like, that as my thing. And so when I thought about going to college, that's sort of where my head was, is that I wanted to be the best athlete. And I want to go to school. I want to be a decent student. But that's actually really what I thought it was all about. I also thought, I had this little formula. I had the 3 S's. The S's were sports, school, social. Actually, probably sports, social, school. And those are the 3. Where could I go where I actually could do those things and actually do them as best as I could? And then what happened is that I went to college, and it was sort of a rough awakening, the difference between what I could do in high school and college. One of those things was I was pretty good at science and math in high school. I didn't really realize I was actually a pretty good writer and reader, too. I was pretty good at all those things, but the reality is I thought science and math were where they're going to start. But once I started doing it, I realized this whole next level of college science and math was just not for me. And on top of that, between that and my sports schedule, I couldn't do it all. And so I had to sort of turn away from that, which felt like I had let myself down. But then I started, like, learning about things that were really different, interesting things to me. And one of those things that happened, though, and I'll get actually into my major a little bit, but one of the things that happened was that I really found myself thinking during the summers, even though I was going to swim, I actually had to find a job that I could actually make a little money and swim in the morning and in the evenings, but swimming was still the focus. So my first year, what I did is I went to a company and I worked in the mail room, which was like the mail and copy room. And all I did was actually made copies for people and delivered mail. And you might sort of think that, why would you do that? That just sounds like so, like, not something you would do. Especially, I mean, I went to Stanford. It's like a really good school, but that's what I did. I was like, I just need a job. But the second year, because they liked me and I knew a lot of people, they said, hey, do you want to work in the HR department? So I did that my second summer, and I was behind a desk, and I was actually sitting behind a computer, and I had to do surveys of people to ask them how they like working at the company. And then I had to analyze those surveys, and I learned actually how to use, like, at the time, the version of Excel was called Lotus 123, a spreadsheet, and I wrote reports, and I did that my second summer. The third summer, they still liked me, and they said, why don't you come back and work in our sales group? And I'm like, I'm not a sales guy. Like, I don't think that makes sense, but I need a job, and I can still swim on the morning and evenings, and so I'm going to try to do some sales. And so I ended up in sales, and I learned about how to sell copiers and computers. Woohoo! So exciting. But the thing that I learned, actually, in doing that was I didn't love sales, but actually I learned what it takes to sell, which actually was really valuable. I also started to learn and think about more like, what might I want to do after college? So one of the reasons why I share that first story, and I'm going to share you a couple more stories, is that there's some lessons that I've learned along the way. So this first lesson, if it comes up, come on, baby, you can do it. Go, pump through, maybe. Yeah, oh, okay. So there's two things that are going to happen here. So I skipped one part of the story. I'm going to go to the second one first. I'll go back to the first one in a second. So that what you do during the summer, and it might be stuff that feels like it's not really that important, if you can do some things during the summer that is work-related, just an experience of some kind, it actually can have value to you. And it doesn't have to be something that has to be perfect, but it just has to be something that's interesting. If I go back to the first point, what I'm going to tell you is that I ended up in political science as my major. And the reason why I did was actually I found that at the time, the Cold War was going on between China, United States, and Russia, and I was trying to understand, like, why was all that happening? And I learned a ton about, like, power and influence and negotiations by reading about it. And I also learned a lot about, like, law, because there's a constitutional law class, and I actually learned how to write well and become a pretty good analysis of reading. And such that what happened, though, was I thought, maybe I might even think about going on into something in politics or law, which I didn't do, which I'll tell you in a second. But the reason why I tell you that is that what I came to learn is that even though I studied political science and ended up going into business, there were a ton of things that I learned in that world that actually I still use even today. So I mentioned a couple of things: how I communicate, how I write, how influence and power works in organizations, how you negotiate. Like, these are all things that actually I learned in political science that I wouldn't have known at the time how valuable that would be throughout my entire life. And I will tell you, even now, being one of the leaders of a university and trying to get things done is not easy. Everyone has different opinions, everyone wants different things. I actually find that the things I learned in political science have application now in this job that I have today, many, many, many years later, literally decades later. So, next part of the story. So as I said, I majored in political science. I did pretty well in constitutional law. I'm getting to senior year. I'm thinking, what am I going to do? I know I don't want to be in the copy room. I know I don't want to sell computers and copiers. I know I don't want to work in HR and do surveys. What am I going to do? So I do well in this law class, and I think, I'm actually going to go apply to law school. I can write, I can read. I did well in this class. My professors like me. They write me a letter a reference letter for law school. And then one of my really good friends said to me, Andy, what do you know about law? And I was like, what I learned in constitutional law class, and I watched LA Law. That was a big TV show at the time. And I realized, and we realize this now, is that a lot of times we as young people don't really know a whole lot about what's out there in the world of work. Maybe what we see on TV, maybe what our parents did, or maybe what we might see in our local community, but we really don't know all that's out there. But law sounded like a good thing. It sounded safe. And so he said, well, why don't you go talk to a lawyer? I said, that sounds like a good idea. I should do that. He said, do you know any lawyers? He goes, yeah, my dad's a lawyer. So I went to go talk to his dad, and he told me all about it. And at the end of the conversation, he said to me, so how does this sound to you? Does it sound like something you might like to learn and do? And I said, not really. And he said, that's a good thing. It's better for you to know now than it would be for you to spend the money, go to school, be there for 3 years, be in a stream or a river where everyone's driving to become lawyers, and you're like, I'm not sure what I'm doing here. That you would be actually like spinning your wheels, wondering, how did I get here? And that's not important. That's a really important thing when you think about the grad school process. So one of the things that I learned in that one was is that jobs and careers are not what we think, and definitely not what we see on TV or social media. So the way to get there is you actually have to do informational interviews and have curiosity conversations. So I know interviews sound like really formal. It doesn't have to be formal. It's really about this question. Tell me about your origin story. Like, what were you thinking when you were a college student, and how did you end up where you are? And tell me, like, why you do it. Why do you like it? Like, what's your day like? Help me think through, like, whether this could be something that I might like. And even if I find out that I don't, that's okay. Let's talk a little bit about, like, other directions I could go into that might be of interest. Do you know any people who actually do those things that I could talk to too? That is like the biggest door to try to consider opening. All right, so I go away from talk to my friend whose dad's the lawyer. Whose dad's a lawyer. I don't know what I'm going to do now. I actually had gotten into law school. I had to tell my professor, "Thank you for writing my reference letter. I'm not going to school," because I actually realized this wasn't the right thing. And they said, "Good for you, Andy. I know that was a little work for me, but I'd rather have you actually be on the right path and go do something that you really isn't fit for you." And so what I did was I thought, well, I'm going to go sit in my room. I had a really nice room. I'm going to sit in my room, and I'm going to write in my journal for as long as I can to I'll figure out what I'm going to do, sitting all by myself. And it was really not productive. I didn't get anywhere, because we can't do anything by ourselves sitting alone in our room thinking that if I just sit in my room long enough, God will put a burning bush next to me and tell me what I should do with the rest of my life. That wasn't going to happen. And I learned that actually by trying it. And so what I would say is that what I realized is that I needed to get out. So what did I do? I finally went to the career office, first time, senior year. If I could do something over, I would have gone earlier just because it would have been helpful to actually have someone to talk about and think about it. And when I went there, what happened is I realized, oh, I'm lucky. It's not too late. There's a career fair coming. I should go check that out. There are companies who are coming to present like what they're doing, and I can hear what they do. And what ended up happening is I heard about this thing that I'd never heard about ever in my entire life, which at the time was this thing called consulting. And what spoke to me was there was a person who stood up in the front and said, when I was in school, I didn't know what I wanted to do. And I'm a poli-sci major. And I actually went and found about this company, and we want more people to come to this firm just like me. People who are good thinkers, good communicators, take responsibility, want to be leaders, want to make a difference, willing to work hard, know how to manage their time well. Sounds like a student athlete. And that's what I found was calling me. And so I went and I interviewed, and they liked me. I got the job. And little did I know that getting out of my room and going to, honestly, to that career center, see what was available, totally changed the course of my entire life. It's crazy how one little thing like that, which is like a door that closed, led to a total new way of looking at life because I took a step forward. So that's the next lesson, which is that you won't ever know exactly when the light will come on. Some of you might already know it. I've decided, I'm going for it, I've learned enough about it, I want it. Some of you may actually find that you started that way, but now you've gotten closer to it, and you're like, I'm not so sure anymore. That's okay. Keep on moving through it. You might find you have to change your mind, just like the way I did. But the reality is another light will come on. But you never know. But you have to be moving actively through the process. You can't sit still. You know this story, you know this metaphor, right? You can't turn a parked car. So if we're parked and we're not moving through this process of thinking like, who am I, where am I going, what am I interested, what might be possible in the future, all we're doing is just sitting still. And we're not turning, we're not moving anywhere, and we're just sort of stuck. And we all know that's like not a good feeling. So always just keep moving one step forward. All right. And the last thing here is when I think about like this first job, so one of the things a lot of times, for whatever reason, when I meet college students, the biggest barriers they have to actually starting this process is, I need to figure out what I want before I actually start to go try to get it, because I don't want to waste my time. And the hard part is that actually you won't be able to do it for the reason I just told you, but also nothing's a waste of time. Everything's actually helping you get more information to make a better decision. The best decision is an informed decision. The only way you can have an informed decision is actually if you get information. The only way you get information is you're actually actively looking for the information. The information is not going to just come and land in your lap. And so what happens then is that I thought, what do I want to do? And it wasn't, I want to be a consultant for the rest of my life. You know, when they're asking you in interviews, like, what do you think you want to do in 5 years? Like, I'm just thinking, I just would like to have a job that I like and that I'm learning and I like the people and I'm growing. Like, it's sort of that simple. So I set these very simple goals. I thought, one, whatever I do, I'm going to do the best job possible I can. I'm going to try to always be the best I can. And I think for all of you, you probably feel that way about everything you do. And I know you do in your sports world. You were like, or in this world where you're back here, you know, putting together this set. Like those students, they're like, we're bringing it every day the best we can. We're never going to do, you know, not good enough. So I want to do that at work. Never really worked, never made money. I want to do that. Second thing, I needed to learn. 21 years old, never had a real job before, never lived on my own, never paid rent on my own, never did insurance, never bought benefits. I'm like, I just got to figure that out. Like, no one's expecting me to be perfect. No one's ever done before. You know, millions of people have done it before me. They didn't know what they were doing the first time. I just want to figure it out. Give myself some grace. Third is that I just needed to learn, what does it mean to be independent and responsible? No longer any structures. I got to make the structures myself. I kept it that simple. I didn't make it. I have to have this perfect job in this perfect company. Otherwise, if I don't have it, like, life is not good. Like, that's not the point at that time. I just needed to get out there. And so I trusted that I'd be able to figure it out, because we always figure it out. And that's that last point, is that take it one step at a time. Don't expect perfection. And trust that you'll figure it out. You will figure it out, but you just got to keep moving. The one regret that oftentimes people ask, like, if you could have done it differently, what would you have done? I wish that I had been more reflective about what it means to have like holistic well-being. You know, well-being is a word in 2023 that did not exist 10 years ago. It did not exist 20 years ago. It did not exist 30 years ago. It did not exist 40 years ago. Like, this is a concept where you are living in a day where people actually care about you as whole people. You need to care about yourself as a whole person. That one piece that, as I mentioned, those S's, sports, social, school, what I was missing, spiritual. And the reason why I bring that up is that what to me spiritual means is that underlying all these pieces of well-being, there's a spiritual foundation that you just have to make like a choice. What's my philosophy about life and where life comes from and where I come from and what I identify with? It could be something that, honestly, it could be any religion. It could be something you've like decided on because you've researched or read something. But you got to decide. Because actually what happens, I found, is that I floated along making up my own rules. And for probably about 15 years after I graduated from college, I thought I could do everything totally on my own with my own rules. And I made a lot of decisions that I wish I hadn't. And I live life in a way that I wish I haven't. Even though professionally I can tell you this amazing story, personally I was not actually very grounded. So I just put that out for you as another thing to think about. Okay, so now we're going to move into this concept of what's my why. I just want to make sure I see where we are in our time here. Okay, hold on. Okay. Wait a second. So when I refer to this concept of what's my why, it's another way of saying, like, what is your calling or what is your purpose? And you actually hear this concept on your campus here with this whole Center for Learning and Calling and Career. And I know a lot of times it gets shortened to CLCC, and so all you know is that, I know there are these 4 letters, but I don't really think about what the actual letters mean. But the reason why this concept of calling, purpose, your why, isn't so important is that it's inside each one of you, and it's different. It's very unique. It's unique to you, and it's like no other person's in the world. And it doesn't even have to be something that you have to actually like put on your Instagram or share widely. It can be just totally personal. It's about who you are and what you value and what you most care about. It is about maybe there are problems or challenges in the world that you want to solve or be part of solving. It might be about places that actually have certain meaning to you. So there's a book that's called Start With Why. And there's a man who's a very famous writer called Simon Sinek. And he wrote it usually referring to great leaders, great organizations. And the general idea about it is that if you know your why and can articulate it clearly, it gives you purpose and clarity, and you're more inspired and more motivated to move and make decisions and find success in your life. So the same thing can be thought about for a person. If I know my why, I'll have actually what I would call almost like a combination of a lens that I look through to see things. It's like a North Star that helps guide my way. And actually, it's almost like these bumpers on the side that keep you from moving outside of the zone that actually is the place that you really have chosen that you're meant to be. It actually is a really nice sort of comforting thing. Like a lot of people might want to say it's like your GPS. It's more than your GPS because it's actually not, you put in a direction and you just follow it. You actually have to be active in it with glasses, having these bumpers that you're bumping alongside of, and actually knowing there's something out there that you're actually almost like being pulled toward, that you're actually trying to say, this is really what I want to sort of, who I want to be and where I want to go in my life. With it, what happens is it motivates you. So you've heard about this idea about growth mindset. Think about how important relationships are, who you want to hang out with, who you want to actually like serve, who you want to help. And it really helps you think about how you set and achieve your most important professional goals. So one of the things that I like to do to help students sort of maybe ground this, so part of it is who you are, and part of it is what are those challenges you might like to solve. And there's a friend of mine who's writing a book right now that in writing his book, he's come up with these really cool cards. They're called challenge cards. And what he does is he says, rather than having you all think about what's the job or company or organization you want to work in based on what you know, what's the big challenge you want to solve? So I'm going to give you an example of that here. Hold on 1 second. I'm jumping between 2 different things. There you go. Here are those challenges. So one of them would be creating meaningful experiences for others. So what might be a role that's like that? It could be an event planner, wedding planner. It could be a person who runs a restaurant. It could be a person who actually directs this whole experience that you're having right now. It could be a coach. It could be a professor, right? That could be actually your call, the problem. How about another one? Drive sports performance. It could be actually something that relates to people. It could be something that relates to cars. It could relate to equipment in the sports world. Like there could be a lot in that world. Solve new challenges through entrepreneurship. To actually come up and be innovative and do new things. Help people reach their potential. I'll tell you, that one's mine. So whatever I do, no matter what role I play, I'm always trying to figure out, like, how can I be in the world where I'm helping people think about what's your true potential and how can you get there? Protect society from crime or from danger. Here we have a big cybersecurity program here, where some of you actually are really interested in sort of like how do you make a difference, like protecting people. There are a lot of different roles that you can play that are under that particular challenge. Collecting using big data, improving mental health, distributing wealth. That could be as much as, on the one hand, on the financial side. It could be on the other side, on the economic development side. There are a lot of different things you can do. Promote healthy living, ending extreme poverty, or create your own. So I put this out here for you so that as you think about, like, with the question, not only what's my why, but where might the world that I want to actually operate in, like where it leads to, what do I do? What's the big challenge or problem that you actually care about? And it's under that challenge, there are a lot of different roles that you could potentially play. So let's take a couple that might have relevance to some of you here. Let's see, let's go forward. Okay, so for creating meaningful experience for others, everything from a sales representative to a video game designer to a healthcare worker to an entrepreneur, there are a lot of things you could do that are about that, around creating meaningful experiences. How about protecting society from crime? The things that we mostly think about are lawyer, judge, criminologist, police detective, but you could be on the other end, financial fraud investigator, protecting vulnerable security things like cybersecurity. There's a lot of different things that could fall under that big umbrella. I think there was one more. Let's see what happened. I got that one. And healthy living. So I think a lot of you might have some interest in the healthcare area, of which there are a lot of roles you can play that if for some reason you went down one path, a lot of times I see a lot of students, they want to be doctors or nurses, but for some reason academically that didn't work out, or they actually realize I don't really like the sight of blood. But then they go, wait, what do I do now? I can't be that. I guess I just go do something else. Well, no, you don't have to do something else. You can still be trying to promote healthy living in a lot of other kinds of ways. So know that it may, again, feel like sometimes there's one role, and if I don't do that, that's it. No. There's a lot more roles as long as you are clear on what the bigger problem or challenge that you actually are really involved with. Okay. So I like to put this up. Sorry it doesn't show up so well, but the point is one of the things I was telling you about, like the one S that I said is the spiritual, and the reason why that's important is that it gives me a touchstone to know what are God's words of how he thinks about me that helps me sort of find my way. And one of those is remembering this, is that we are all God's masterpiece. God created us. He thinks that we're each one of us, the most beautiful person on the planet. We're like his child, just like the way we would love our own child. And that in that, he wants and has good things in plan for us. So no matter how confused you are about this question about what's my why, he's with you. Like, he's there, and he believes and he knows that you'll find it. Okay, so how do I find it? Well, first I'll say it starts right here at Montreat College, where every single day counts. I know a lot of times we think, if only I knew I could do it, I can actually then execute and I'll get it later. Usually it's to use this concept of, when I become this, then I'll be happy and I'll have it all figured out. And what I'm going to challenge you to be thinking is that every day here counts. And I'm going to show you why. So on this slide, what being in college is about is building a foundation. You are actually, if you think about it, are at the beginning of a life that will potentially be as much as 80 more years, 8 more decades that you might be alive. The way healthcare is going, there's a very good chance that all of you will live to 90 to 100 years old. Given that, these few years are the beginning of a foundation. Why is it a foundation? Because this first left bucket, which you probably have read a little bit about, but know is that I got to know myself. And the question would be, what do I need to know about myself? And what I challenge you to look at is that there are things that you are beginning to get clear about your interests, how you might describe your values, You have your unique personality, what your strengths are, the things you love and are great at. What are those things that are truly your strengths, that are what you would call your superpowers? And finally, what might be that thing that is your calling, your purpose? These are all things that, in a lot of ways, why people go to college is to actually start figuring out what these are. The hard part oftentimes is, wait, who's telling you to do that? We actually sort of go, you're just supposed to do it. Like, just go do it. Like, you'll figure it out. But what I'm challenging you to do is say, what can I be doing every day that helps me get a little bit closer, like putting something in pencil that says, here's what I think it is. It can change. I can tell you that. As you have experience, it'll change. But all those things then lead to a bunch of experiences. You actually learn about what those things are through the experiences you have. And all these experiences actually count and matter, including the role you play on your sports team, including that role that your coaches asked you to play that might be different than what you expected. Those are all things that contribute to then figuring out, okay, I'm going to have a first job, and I'm going to have a second job, I'm going to have a third job, but it's actually with all that foundation that I'm going to make better and better decisions all the way along. And one of the things that I put up there is that sometimes the challenge for all of us is to realize that college is just the beginning of learning how to be a lifelong learner. The way I like to put it to you all is that you went from being at home under the protection in general of a family that loved and cared for you and that you were like, had to follow their rules. Now is your time where it's like, I can set my own rules. You are becoming the CEO of your own life. And what do CEOs have to do? They have to make decisions. They actually have to have philosophies as to, belief systems as to why they make those decisions for themselves. You're trying to figure out what that really looks like. Take the time to know that there are people here in this community that want to have these conversations with you to talk about this kind of stuff. That's why they're here, because they love you. They could do lots of other jobs, but they want to be here with you. Take advantage of that to talk about these kind of things. How can I be a lifelong learner? Knowing that the next step doesn't mean I have to go to some grad school to figure it out. You can learn a lot of other ways, because one of the things that happened with me is I will arguably say that some of the key things I learned about being, like, honestly, a great business person and eventually a CEO of a startup company, I learned after college. I learned after business school. They weren't things I learned in school. It's actually, I had to learn how to learn. And I had to have this thirst for always wanting to learn more. And that's, again, what being here in college is about. But look for great experiences. So that's the other thing, is a lot of times what people want is, well, I want the canned thing. I just want a job that pays this money, and I just want to say I did that job. And I would challenge you to go, it's not about the jobs or the internships or what we call them, it's about experiences. And so what does a great experience look like? So one, they have to fit you and your vision and goals. So that's one of those things that we just talked about, which is, if I know my why, I can do this. And so here's how the pieces. One would be knowing your strengths, your interests, your values will help you pick experiences that seem like they fit. You may actually do an experience and realize after doing it, okay, now that I've done it, it doesn't fit, but that's actually good information. Second one, a great manager and culture. So if it's not the manager, it's actually the people in the work environment who you work with. You respect them, they respect you, they care about you. That can go a long way to actually having a great experience. Third, you can learn and grow. And fourth, you can actually maybe have other options that open up because of what you did. And honestly, sometimes those options open up, it's actually less about the work you did than about the people you were with. If you think about it, I'll use an example. Right here at Montreat, if you have a professor, a class, if you have a coach, assistant coach, trainer that loves you, respects you, you love them, respect them, if you actually start sharing some of like what you're thinking about, they go, I know some friends who do something like that. Can I introduce you to them? That's how simple it is. A lot of times people actually open doors because of the relationship they have with you more than actually the work you did. As long as when you show up, you're doing good work. But that's an important thing to know, is that that's another balance of what these experiences are about. It's also a lot about the people. So in order to do this, though, there is a great experience looking for you, but you have to be prepared because it's a competition. You have to train and be prepared before the day of the actual race. The day of the race is the day you go into an interview. If you go, oh, now I'm going to do the interview, I'll just sort of wing it because I'm a good athlete, you're not going to win because other people are competing for other great experiences. So here are the kind of things that you need to do to make that work. So this is part of like success in this process of searching. There are 8 keys. One is you have a brand. You have a brand that you might have on social media. There's a whole nother version of you that's a professional version that that Karen and her team can help you figure out, how do I represent myself to the outside world that takes all the experiences I have, which might be just, I am a really great student athlete, and says, I would be a great worker. We can do that in a resume, LinkedIn profile, like literally like in 30 minutes. But if you don't do it and you do it yourself, it's not going to look like the way it could. Second, you have to build a network and know how to actually have those skills of having curious conversations. It's not that hard. It's just to do it one person at a time. And you'll be able to actually make that happen. Start with the people that are right in front of you now. Conduct information interviews. We actually talked about that. And then you have to start being able to get to, okay, when I go to, how do I talk to people about the work that I might want to do that's in the language that they use? So you have to actually learn a little bit about it, which is honestly just a little bit of searching on LinkedIn and reading, and you'll be able to figure that out. And then the other thing is that you have to apply to a lot of things. So this is the one thing that people sometimes in their heads go, I'll just apply to one thing I want, and then if I don't get it, well, then I don't know what I'll do. I'll just sort of maybe hang out and do something else. The reality is that you apply to more things, you see more options, you practice more, you get better at telling your story, and what'll happen is that you'll have too many choices. You have too many options, and you'll get to say no to like 1 or 2 or 3 or 5 people who go, sorry, I wish I could have done that, but maybe if this one doesn't work out, we can stay in touch. That's a great feeling. The worst feeling, I applied to one, didn't get that one, I have nothing. It's like go for the gold. Like this is actually very much a competition, so think about it like that. Network a lot, be really prepared, and then this is a big one. Acknowledge and appreciate every person you meet in the process, even the person who's at the very front door, who actually you might think, well, they're just the receptionist. For all you know, and I've heard this story many times, the manager comes out and says to the receptionist, so what'd you think of the person who just came in? They didn't say hi, they didn't say bye, they didn't say thank you. I didn't like them. Yeah, I didn't like them either. They might think you're the best person for the job. But you actually have to know that every person who works in that organization actually is someone who's actually evaluating you in some way. So just be on your toes. It's just like when you go to a game. You see that one player out there, they don't look like they can do anything, and before you know it, they're just running circles around. You're like, what was that about? It's because you actually can't judge a book by its cover and assume that one person, just because of the way they showed up, wasn't going to actually be someone who's really important. Okay, I'm going to skip this slide, even though it's important, but I want to keep going to go through it. And we can talk more about this later if you all want to. Let's see if we can keep going. Back to it starts right here at Montreat right now, is that you have a great center in your Thrive Center and your Center for Learning, Calling, Career. You came to school to make sure this is one of those things you figured out. Make sure you use it. They are here for you. So I just want to make sure, take the time, get to know them, and don't expect actually one meeting to be like the one and done. This process takes a while. You're going to keep learning lots of things about yourself. Just keep coming back, and you'll find actually every year you're a different person. You see things totally different than you did before, and you need to like sort of restate, re-unpack, what are my goals, what am I trying to do, where am I going, and that's actually a really healthy thing. It's a good practice to have actually in life. Second thing is that there is this thing called the Montreat 360. A lot of you have heard of it. A lot of you actually have downloaded it onto your phones. I know that it can feel a little bit like, oh, you're just trying to track like stuff that I do. I'll do it just so I can get all the points and stuff like that. The reality is the real benefit of it is actually what's on this little graphic on the bottom with this circle. And it goes back to the point that I said, like, what was my one regret? I wasn't reflective enough about, given any experience that I had, what did I learn from it? What did I like? What did I not like? What do I want to do more of? Who are people who actually really were cool people that I actually might want to keep in touch with and talk to more? I tend to just sort of roll through life thinking next game, and I don't think about any of that stuff. And if I could do it all over again, that's what this does. Because actually, what this product does is it helps you realize you have way more competencies and skills and knowledge than you think you have. But we're so moving so quickly trying to get out of here so I can get on with my life that we actually don't realize you're learning a ton of stuff. And that information is going to help you figure out both your why and where you're going to go. So you have some things happening just this week. Literally tomorrow, there's an internship showcase. So maybe one of you might go like the way I did my senior year, and all of a sudden the light came on. Come to that employer networking night. So one of the things that sometimes when we're here in a college environment is we can feel a little bit like we're far from the world, we're in a bubble, and the world doesn't even know we're here. And that's sort of both good and bad. Well, one of the things that the school is doing is they're saying, we're bringing people here who actually want to hire you all. They want to get to know you. They actually want to know, would you be interested in them? And the key is that you don't have to have the perfect, I definitely want to work for you, how can I get a job? It's like, I'm curious. Tell me what you do. I don't know anything about it. Tell me, like, how do you onboard people and train people? Tell me, like, what are the skills you're looking for? And how does someone like me, who's a student athlete, who's really busy doing all this stuff, actually tell my story to convince you that I could come work for you? The more that you learn about how the game is played, the more likely you're going to win. It's a new kind of game. That's the one thing that you can all say is that we know how to play the game we play and we know how to win. This is just a new game you're going to learn. And actually, in reality, this game you're going to play for the rest of your life. Like, that is a cool thing to imagine, is that you're actually learning a new game that actually will be valuable to the rest of your life. It can impact how happy you are as well as how much you get paid. It's a good thing to start learning while you're here. There's a bunch of other things that happen here that are all related to helping you figure out your why. So make sure, like, if you have a chance to participate, like, go in with like a new view and look as to what might be possible, especially to answer these questions we talked about today. So I'm going to give you some final advice. And so here we go. So I started with, what are the dreaded questions? Those two questions are, what's your major if you don't have one? And after you've chose your major, like, what are you going to do with that? And some of you might feel like I have an answer, but a lot of times you don't. And here's what I would say is the way to think about it. Just say, I'm interested in blank, or I'm thinking about blank. You don't have to have the perfect, I know exactly. And here's maybe something I'm really excited about. You know, this was at Wake Forest. So-and-so majors have gone into a wide variety of careers, not totally connected to what they need. Same here. Do you know anyone with this type of job or career that I can speak to or learn from? But don't say, I don't know, or I have no idea, or I'm completely lost. Now, those are things you can say to Karen Eilers. Those are things you can say to your faculty members, because they're your friends. But these people out in the world who actually are working, they're actually thinking you could be a potential person to hire. And if you say that, they're like, well, come talk to me when you figure it out. So yes, maybe some of those people would, but I'd even arguably say, even like family and friends, as much as what they want is they want you to like tell them exactly what it is so they can help you get it. And they also, maybe given what they know about careers, which is probably not very little, are going to give you a bunch of advice that's not really all that good. You can just stay in this place of, I'm just really figuring it out and thinking about it. And you can even turn the tables and go, tell me what it was like for you when you were back in college and how you figured out what you were going to do. So make it more of a conversation than feeling like they're actually trying to pin you down for like the perfect answer. If you don't have it, something's wrong with you. Because there's nothing wrong with you. You are all totally normal. Every college student goes through this from the beginning of time. So do not expect to have this answer perfect. So you don't have to be perfect, don't have to be impressive. And any kind of assumptions or opinions they might make, that's theirs. That's not yours. So don't be feeling like, wow, my uncle thinks that I'm making a wrong decision to do that. Well, that's because they might have done that, or 40 years ago, or that was their friend's story and something bad happened, like, data point of 1. So allow yourself to have the room to be able to just go, here's what I'm thinking about, and here's what I know. Do you want to help me? Do you want to give me some ideas of people I should talk to? Lastly, a successful career. It happens over time. So when I think about career in life, it doesn't happen like once I've decided, once I get it, all of a sudden it's done. And there's a book that was written called The 5 Patterns of Extraordinary Careers. I've read a lot of these career books, as you can imagine, in my life. This is one of these really cool ones where what they did is they said, it's a little bit like compound interest. You put some in the bank now, and you start to see the change in the benefits over your life, and it goes like this. It's not like this. It's not like this. It is like compound interest. So be thinking that in the beginning, it's going to be a little bumpy because we have some things to figure out. But think about it all as this, build a foundation. It's going to add up. It's going to pay off. And you never know when it'll pay off. It's just really weird. It pays off in different kinds of ways. Again, that one choice I made to go from working as a CEO of a startup company, selling the company, and then going to work in education and taking a pay cut, that changed my life in a way that was for all the better, which at the time I was like, I'm just guessing, I'm not sure, but I trust that it'll work out, and it worked out. But I think that's the kind of thing, and the good way to think about it is, I was given this by a parent one time. It said ABC, first job, any job. Second job, better job. Third job, career job. So that what that does for you is it releases you from the burden of thinking the very first job has to be the career job. I got to get it right the first time. If I don't get it right the first time, who knows what's going to happen? Take a little bit of the expectation off yourself and go, I have to do something that is a good experience, that I'm going to learn, great people, going to open doors, and I'll figure out the next step. And usually the best time to make those next step changes are when the market's really good and there's lots of opportunities, and sometimes you got to be patient and wait for that moment. But don't put your pressure on like it has to be a career job right out of the box. So I have this last slide. I'm sorry I couldn't make these appear better, but so I had a bunch of slides that were related to different passages that tend to be like, for me, like my go-to touchstone passages. And this one you've all heard before, right? Jesus says, love the Lord your God with all your passion and prayer and intelligence. This is the most important, the first on any list. But there's a second to set alongside it, love others as well as you love yourself. And the reason I like this particular version, which comes from the Message, is that I personally believe that God is always with me, God is always with you, every step of the process. Most often, though, it's me who's actually not looking to God to recognize he's there. Second thing, God's not only asking me to love others, but actually love myself. In order to love myself, I have to know myself. I have to know actually what are the things that I need to actually love myself. When I'm in that place of holistic well-being, I can love everyone. I have endless energy because I'm connected to God and I actually know me well. So I just put that out for you too, is that take this time to build some habits that help you make sure you are taking time to learn who is God and his love for you, but also who are you and his love for you, so that then you can do whatever that thing is in the world that you're meant to do. So, back to the big questions, right? We started with is, what's my why and how do I find it? And what I'm going to offer to you is start with asking this of yourself is, who do I want to be before you start thinking about what do I want to do? You can actually get clear about that piece of who you are, what's your why, what's your purpose, what's your calling, what matters to you, that what you want to do will unfold as long as you take and stay in action. So I'm going to wrap up with just one final word of blessing upon you. I get to have this role where I'm so happy to be here with you. I loved being able to worship with you all and be able to sing these beautiful songs. It really brings joy to my heart. So I would just say this to you here. So may God, our Creator, the Creator of the skies, of the earth, of this beautiful just world that we live in, of every living being, every single one of you, may he be with you and bless you abundantly right here, right now, and every step of the way of your amazing life. With all the questions you have and all the uncertainty you may have, whatever worries you may have, give it to him because he's with you, and may you be mightily blessed. Amen. Thank you for allowing me to be with you today.
Hey, everybody. Thank you for your attention today. If we haven't met, my name's Karen Eilers. I am your Director of Career Development. And if you haven't gotten the message yet, November is going to be a month to remember. This is Career Development Month. And that's not just a Montreat thing, that is a national thing. So we are giving you a few extra things to do, to think about, to take Andy's advice and participate in, starting today at 11:15. Come on out and have a conversation with Andy at lunch in the Gaither Fellowship Hall. We have some boxed lunches available. Tomorrow, I have a dozen or more interns who have already done their internship. We're making themselves available to you. Come on out anytime that you have between 11 and 1. Grab a cookie. encourage and celebrate your friends' achievements. I would love to see you there and get inspired for your own internship. And save the date for Thursday, November 16th in the evening, 6:30 to 8:30. Right upstairs in this building, I am bringing employers to campus to network with you. They are RSVPing right now. I'm seeing every day the growth and who's come in, and I'm excited to get you in front of them. But you do have to sign up and dress up. This is the kind of event where you show up with all your energy and ambition. So I'm looking forward to seeing you at all of these things coming up, and I hope to see you individually at any point as you are working on your career ambitions. Thank you.
All right, friends, band, you guys can come up. There's a bonus convocation lecture tomorrow night, Gather Fellowship Hall, a friend of Tate Fegley's, if you are looking to get some convocation credit. And we'll see you back here for senior convocation on the first Wednesday in December. Stand up, let me bless you and send you. The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious unto you. The Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you perfect peace, now and forevermore, especially as you figure out what you're doing in your vocation in your life. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. You guys are dismissed.